All right, perfect. Hello, everyone. I'm Emil. I'll be talking about ADBC and how it integrates with DataFusion to achieve Apache Arrow end-to-end. So to start off, what's ADBC? ADBC is short for Arrow Database Connectivity. If you're familiar with ODBC or JDBC, Python DB API, these have been around since the 90s and are still widely used. You can think of ADBC as a modern column-oriented alternative. And so it's a sub-project of the Apache Arrow project, which I believe DataFusion started as well. So it is fully open source, Apache 2.0 licensed, governed by the Apache Arrow PMC, and so it's not controlled by like any individual company. This diagram kind of gives you an idea of how ADBC works. So like as a developer, it's just SQL query in, Apache Arrow data out. And then how that works behind the scenes, we have different ADBC drivers, which will implement database wire protocols. So for example, we have a flight SQL driver, and that can be used to connect to like InfluxDB, Starox, Doris, any system that implements flight SQL. And for any system that supports returning data in Arrow format, it'll be Arrow end-to-end. The query goes to InfluxDB or Snowflake, BigQuery, whatever, and the database system on the server will return Arrow, and then we just send the Arrow all the way back to the client, and that's super fast and efficient. But not all databases support Arrow. So for example, Postgres is not going to return Arrow data to you. So in that case, we'll have to convert to Arrow within the driver before we finish sending it to the client. Cool. So ADBC can be very fast, especially with column-oriented systems. This is a benchmark from DuckDB, and in this case, ADBC was, I believe, 38 times faster. And this is not uncommon for analytics workloads. If you're pulling large data sets out of column-oriented systems, it's not uncommon to have 20, 30, 40, 50x improvements compared to like ODBC, JDBC, the other kind of legacy row-oriented connectivity APIs. All right, this is a view of kind of current ADBC ecosystem. So we have client libraries for most popular most popular programming languages. And then these client libraries will load the ADBC drivers and then connect to different databases. And so you might notice here we have the DataFusion logo. So there is a ADBC driver for DataFusion. So in any of these programming languages, you can load the DataFusion driver and then run some queries on some local files. The next way that DataFusion integrates with ADBC is using the table provider. So this is also part of the DataFusion contrib organization on GitHub and open source. There's a table providers repo, which includes an ADBC table provider. So if you're building with DataFusion, you can use this table provider to connect to any database system that is supported with ADBC. And so in cases where the database system supports Arrow, this will be Arrow end-to-end. So I could query a table from Snowflake, that's going to come back in Arrow format to my DataFusion, and then I could run like any subsequent analysis in DataFusion if I want to. And then the other main way that you can use ADBC and DataFusion together is through Flight SQL. So Arrow Flight SQL is another Apache Arrow subproject. It's a wire protocol shown earlier in the first diagram with InfluxDB. And so if you're building a database system with DataFusion, you can implement Flight SQL as a wire protocol. And then anyone can use the ADBC driver for Flight SQL to query your system. There's also a Flight SQL server repo in the DataFusion contrib GitHub org, which is a Flight SQL server that you can easily integrate with your system to add support. And so this would be Arrow end-to-end as well. You wouldn't have to create like separate SDKs for all these different programming languages, right? You just add support for Flight SQL to your system, and then any developer can use the ADBC client libraries. They can use the Flight SQL ADBC driver, and they can connect to your system. All right. If you want to learn more, I got a list of resources you can take a picture of. A couple I'll call out is DBC documentation. DBC is a command line tool that we built to install and manage drivers. So if you've ever, had the unfortunate experience of installing like ODBC drivers, it's very, very bad. We want to avoid that with ADBC. So this is a command line tool we built inspired by UV for any Python people out there. So you can run, DBC install DataFusion, and it'll install the DataFusion driver for you, or, DBC install Snowflake or BigQuery or whatever system you want, and we'll easily install a driver for you, and you can use it right away. And then the last two links here are for the projects I mentioned, for the table provider and the Flight SQL server. So if you are building with DataFusion, I recommend checking those out as well. And those are open source. And yeah, thank you.